Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to Jahaneman. Today is Monday, the first day of the week, and that is dedicated for the teachers. Motivate Million Teachers is our mission, and we are here once again with our mission, Motivate Million Teachers. But before I start motivating the teachers, let me just inform my viewers that today is a very special day and we have a special guest with us who is from London, UK. Our special guest is Mr. Muhammad Haris NP. Mr. Muhammad Haris NP is the conceptualizer of Cyber Square, the project to use programming to redefine the relationship of school students with programming and thus reconceptualize learning itself. A first of its kind initiative in schools of the United Kingdom, Middle East, and also in Kerala. A passionate programmer and a trainer. With more than 15 years of experience in the field, Mr. Haris, who is currently based out of London, brings his Bachelor's of Technology training from Motilal Nehru National Institute of Technology, MNNIT Allahabad, and his experience with Tata Consultancy Services Bangalore, Intel Corporation, Arizona, United States, and many companies in UK to the school education. And he tries to think of innovative and imaginative ways of connecting the IT sector with schooling. Mr. Haris also has an MBA from Manipal Institute of Technology in Marketing and is the founder CEO of BAABTE, a company founded to skill students and change them from users to creators. He has consulted with the school groups, banks, and business firms from IT, implementation and training in Britain, UAE, and India. I welcome Mr. Muhammad Haris to my show, Jahaneman. Assalamu alaikum, Mr. Haris. How are you?
Thank you.
So welcome to the show.
Okay.
Yes, I have spoken a lot about you and it speaks quite high. Your profile speaks quite high about you. More than 15 years of experience and that too in IT sector and very innovative idea of connecting the IT with schooling. This is really a marvelous, I must say, marvelous contribution to the school education. I would request you to kindly say a little more about you and little more about your education, about your childhood, and about your passion.
Okay, so I'll start with my childhood. I did my schooling from Kerala. I studied in the Malayalam medium school where I think I was introduced to computers when I was in 8th grade. My father is a Malayalam professor, so he took me to a computer center and said that there is something called computers. It was in 1996, I think. So it's going to come. So that time I was actually learning typing also. So he said that there is something advanced to that typing. So just try out this particular thing. So I was very that's when I realized that I have a lot of interest for computers. So when we started, there was no Windows actually. So it was all about the old floppy disk, 250 MB RAM, 256 MB RAM. It's the floppy disk and things like that. So that's how I started my love for computers. And then I studied my pre-degree in a college in Calicut again. And then I wrote the entrance exam and I got into NIT Allahabad. It was MNRC when I joined at that time. And our college was the first college in India to have a Param 10,000 supercomputer. And then like as I said, it was my passion to be an engineer. I always wanted to become a computer engineer. So I got into information technology in NIT Allahabad, and where I was placed into TCS as my campus interview. I was working for TCS for 3 years in Bangalore, and then I left to US for Intel. I was working as a contractor for Intel Corporation. There also I was doing my engineering, my software engineering. And then I decided to come back to India to start my company. So my first task was to go for MBA. I joined MBA in Manipal, and marketing. I chose marketing because, as I said, I wanted to learn what exactly happens when you start a company. And then when I was doing my MBA in 2010, we started the company. And in 2011, once I passed out of the college, we went for we started our own office and things like that. So my passion, as I said earlier, like I was very passionate about my job also. And but when I was working there, I found that there is a big gap. Like there are a lot of people who find it very difficult to understand coding and computers. So then in 2011, when we started, we decided to work with colleges. And then when we are working with the colleges, I realized that there are a lot of skill gap which is happening in the school. So if you cannot train somebody in the college directly, so we have to start from their childhood. So that's why we came up with this idea of coding and AI in schools. And right now, the new education policy came in 2020, but we started this whole idea in 2013, and our first implementation happened in 2014. So we always say that the CyberSquare was started in 2014, 6 years back, when the government actually started talking about coding and AI. And then and my to talk about yeah, that's about the background and my family background. My As I said, both my parents are government employees, and my brother is an English professor in St. Stephen's College, Delhi. And my sister is a yoga, I mean not yoga, she's a naturopathy doctor. Yeah, so yeah. And
So
my
thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, thank you for letting us know about your background. And I must say that you are a passionate engineer who has more passion for education than the engineering, or equal passion for engineering and education both.
yeah.
So you started your cyber Square. Yes, such a beautiful name, very innovative name. Cyber Square, you started in 2014. And luckily, NEP emphasizes quite high on AI and coding. And even people say that it's going to start even from the primary or lower primary level. So what is your understanding of NEP's guidelines about AI and coding in the schools?
Okay. So as you said, it is we in our curriculum we have developed in CyberSquare curriculum. We are starting coding from grade 1 and artificial intelligence in grade 2. So what NEP says, there are two places where NEP talks about coding and AI. AI is just mentioned. They don't talk about in NEP. They don't talk when to start and what to do, but they just mention that contemporary subjects such as artificial intelligence, design thinking, etc., should be given to the student. So what I feel is only the early innovators will actually start taking about AI. But regarding the regarding the coding in 4.25, they talk about activities involving coding will be introduced in middle stage. That means grade 6 onwards, coding will be introduced in the syllabus. And what CBSE has done is CBSE even in 2019, they said grade 8, 9, and 10 we should introduce AI. But it's a skill subject. As I said, a lot of people, a lot of schools, like there are 22,000 schools I think under CBSE, out of which maybe 1,000 or 2,000 schools will only adopt to coding and AI initially. But eventually, like if you talk about, see, let's think about how we learned English. Now everybody, like from KG onwards, we are learning English. But early it was in grade 4 we started learning things like that. So eventually, what will happen is, as you said, it will start from I've tutored about coding from KG, because it's a language. It's language for machines. So a student has the capacity to learn more and more languages. So what I feel is in anybody it doesn't require a lot of new skills or other skills, but they can start from grade 1 onwards. So
So,
to answer your question,
I think, Mr. Harris, here, if you are starting from KG, So I think the educational, like the people who are the stakeholders in education, like the management and the principals and the teachers, they may be having good understanding of this. But what about the parents? Are they going to support you in your mission of starting coding from KG?
It's a very good question actually, because that is something which we faced when we started in UAE. There were a lot of parents who were dead against coding and AI. I feel that they don't know what exactly is coding and AI. They think that it's a burden for the students and things like that. And I see a lot of posts around coding, like why do we have to give burden to the student? On in addition to that, the idea is they're forgetting one particular thing. It's not about adding something to the student. You don't have to learn a lot of things that you're doing right now in the schools. You can actually think, prioritize the things. Okay, you have only 24 hours time. Maybe even the students have 24 hours time, but even the schools it should look at one angle. See, I have 48 periods or maybe 40 periods. So am I spending enough time in the school for teaching skills that is required for the student to survive? For example, now you think about us taking somebody as a teacher. The first question is, you will ask, do you know computers? Do you know Excel? Do you know Word? Do you know Google Classroom? All these questions, right? So why not? Why can't we teach all these things in the school itself, so that it becomes a basic skill for the students? Okay. And the point is, as I said earlier, we are giving maximum 1 period or 2 periods. And what happens is, you want to like, it's now COVID is happening, so we want to reduce number of periods. The first thing that they will stop is computer science, because it's an additional subject, it's a skill subject. The problem is, and you end up like, if you analyze your time in your whole life, you are spending, earlier people used to say that you have to love your job, because that is where you're spending all of your time. But that has changed now. You have to love your computer or mobile, because that is where you're going to spend most of your time. The moment you get up,
Especially during COVID, it is true. During COVID, I think out of 24 hours, I think 14 to 18 hours you used to sit on the computers, because there is no other, without this, there was no survival at all.
yeah, exactly. And that was not the case for the teachers and students, because when they go to the class, but now it has happened online also. My point is, you think about somebody who's working in an office, he's always in front of a computer, right? He may not be a software engineer, whether he's in accounts, whether he's doing something else, designing, whatever it is, he's in front of a computer. And those people who are not in front of a computer, they are in front of a mobile at that time. So my point is that, how much time are you or focus are you giving to teach something which is they use on a daily basis? That's what I'm trying to say to I was trying to answer how parents are thinking about it. Yeah. So
Okay,
my
Mr. Harris, I can understand your AI teaching AI to the middle class students, because I was among those first principals who introduced robotics in their schools. And I know that how much the children used to be happy when there was robotics period. We have allotted continuous period for the robotics, and they have made like so many robots for folding the t-shirts and for removing the dirts and all these types of simple things they made. So they were very happy. Like the children used to enjoy it, and very quickly they used to learn these skills. But as far as coding is concerned, will you please explain little more with examples, or if you have any presentation, if you can show us that how exactly coding works?
Okay, so coding is, again, a lot of people have this particular doubt, what exactly is coding. So I will repeat, coding is the language of machines. Okay, for example, you are using Zoom. Okay, Zoom is created using coding. Okay, whatever application that you see, whatever click that you make, everything is created using coding. So if you know coding, you will be able to understand what is happening, and you will be able to create these kind of things. Okay, so I'll just share my screen.
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
seeing this particular thing. Okay. Okay, so this is a sample of coding. So what you can see here is, it is anybody, like, if you know English, you will be able to read import MySQL connector as this one, DEF login. Okay, so the point is, let me explain. Like, if I'm writing H2 plus O gives what H2O. Okay, I'm just writing
Yeah.
something. Okay, so this particular thing, a person who understand chemistry will read it as hydrogen plus oxygen gives H2O. Okay? But a person who don't know who don't know chemistry, he will read it as H2 plus O gives H2O. He doesn't know anything about it. In the same way, when you're coding something, you are using English alphabets only. That's why you can read it. Like, but you may not
Okay.
know the exact meaning. So my point is that it is a formal language. So what is a formal and natural language? See, now I'm speaking to you in a natural language. Our Malayalam, Hindi, English, all these things are natural languages. It has a context. Context means it has different meaning, like in different places. For example, you are in a place where some marriage function is going on. The way you say how are you, like it will be with full excitement. But let's assume you are in a place where there is somebody has died. Then the way you ask, like, okay, how are you doing, like that you will ask, right? So there is a context for language. Okay, so otherwise also you can say that I will show you. Okay, you can say in different ways, like I will show you means I will show you, or okay, I will see to that you don't get it, I will not show you, things like that. So when we talk about coding, it's a formal language where we are giving commands to the computer. Okay, so maybe I will explain a little more here. A lot of people don't know that in computers there is something called a terminal where you can give commands. Okay, for example, I'm giving a command here, ls. So it lists out all these particular files in the computer. Okay, it's the same as when I click on this particular thing, it loads everything. This is the same command. So this is where a person who knows coding and a person who don't know coding will make a difference. So he will know what all the things you can command to the computer, and then you can get the desired output. So as you know, computers are used by doctors, lawyers, everyone, right? But the machine is the same. I mean, if I'm going to buy a laptop, I will buy a laptop. I will not buy a laptop which is for lawyers, or I'll not buy a laptop which is for engineers. Okay. In the same way, here it's called a programmable device. Same device can be used by multiple people. If you know programming, you will be able to program things the way you want, and you can create things that you want to create. Okay. So as I said, these are digital environments, and with coding, you will know you can create your own digital environment. And I would like to touch upon one more thing. You think about this particular thing, like you are like right now I'm located in London. So somebody comes to London without knowing English. It will be very difficult for him to behave in that particular environment because he doesn't understand what is going around. In the same way, when we have robots who are going to live with us, if you don't know the language of robots, it will be very difficult for you to live. But if you know language of coding, if you know the language of machines, which is coding, you will be comfortable living those in the world. Okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
thank you. Thank you very much. Now, I think the things are very clear to me. Uh, now, let's talk about Cyber Square. So, what Cyber Square has planned, how Cyber Square works in the school, and is there any partnership with the school management, or it is a private affair, like you take extra classes for the students? How exactly Cyber Square functions?
okay, so regarding CyberSquare is a complete curriculum that can be implemented by the schools by replacing their computer curriculum. So when we started, as you said, as a co-curricular activity, but then soon we realized that if you want to really make the changes, it has to be implemented as part of the computer science curriculum. So what CyberSquare is, we have developed a curriculum which will enhance which is very easy for the management or the school to implement coding and AI into school. So I will just share my screen.
So, have you developed some books on the basis of your curriculum, or it's only in the soft copy?
No, it is we have complete textbook based on for the British National Curriculum as well as CBSE.
Okay.
Okay, so this is I have created how to implement in schools. What you require is a block period, as you were mentioning, and same computer teachers, computer labs with the internet connectivity, and in the case of COVID situation, we need to have mobile and other things. And so what we do is in our textbooks we have something like this. We need to give digital literacy, ICT, and computer science. Okay, computer science means coding and AI. And so now you can see, right, digital literacy is here. So when we start from grade one, we mainly focus on digital literacy and ICT. And when we progress towards like third grade, fourth grade, the literacy comes down, and then ICT also comes down. But coding and artificial intelligence increases. So the idea is that a student should be introduced to computers with digital literacy and ICT, along with a little bit of coding, and then later we can introduce coding and artificial intelligence. As you may be knowing, artificial intelligence is actually coding only. Okay, because we need coding to develop artificial intelligence. Okay, so this is how we implement.
Coding is the basis. Like first they should know coding, and then after that only they can do many things if
Yeah,
they have the skill of coding. Yes.
exactly. So that this is how we work, and what we do is we work with the schools, and we provide training for the teachers. We do a digital empowerment for program for the parents, and then for those students who find it difficult in the initial cases, we conduct skill workshops for the students. So we actually provide a complete solution for the schools to implement. And it's not that we are implementing it now when the NEP 2020 came. We started it in 2014. So we have and also we have 30,000 students on our platform now. So we have tried it, tested it. We know that what is the best way to do it, and we make sure that we provide maximum visibility to the teachers also. So we work with mentors where the mentors actually help the students to come up with their own ideas and their projects. So actually, finally, students come up with projects like this, like Android application and the web application. So these kind of projects, people will come up with these kind of projects, and also we help the students to prepare documentaries and robotics and things like that. So my point is that we closely work with the school teachers and then empower them, parents and the students to go to the next level. From that's basically from users to creators. And we also create innovation labs in the schools. So why we are creating this innovation? This is the one lab which we implemented in Abu Dhabi here in the UAE, and it will actually make change the way the students are seeing innovation. Because when we go to the school, they see the old rooms, right? But there they may not be motivated enough. So what we do is this kind of a setup. If we create, they will think that okay, I'm coming to an innovative school, and then probably whatever we talk, they will be able to connect.
It's looking so beautiful, that the design and everything, the ambience you have created, like it's really world-class ambience it provides. And I don't think that any child would not love to go to that space where it has been done. Now, can we talk about little bit about the extra investment or burden on the school, on the management? Is it at par with other curriculum, or it's going to cost them more?
There are two things. One thing is the textbooks that we are providing. So for that textbook, it's the same cost that with any other textbook, and then the platform is there which we provide. So the platform there will be an additional cost.
Okay.
But the school can. What I would suggest is if the school has the constraints on the these things, then they can. They don't have to buy the textbooks.
Okay, so that's really nice to know about Cyber Square, that you have lots of innovative ideas for the students, and I'm sure that the students are going to learn interestingly when they are going to use your books. Now, one question out of the context that there are so many schools in the country like India. They even cannot afford a single computer in this school. So do you think what is going to be the future of such children in coming days? Because it is said that the AI and coding is the future of education. So are they going to be lagging behind in the future education, or how we have to take them along with us in the future education?
So yeah, again, this is a very good question because the digital divide that we talk about is happening in India, and we know that earlier at least they had a chance to come and visit the school. And if you are really looking at computer science, there are a lot of websites and other things where people have started working for these kind of students, where old laptops and other things are shipped to those students. So and what I feel is we should have a mechanism where we collect old laptops, instead of dumping it in the sea. Probably we should be able to provide it to the students. So other because every 3 years people change, because nowadays people are changing mobile every 1 year, right? So these are actually lying down somewhere in your room or this thing. So we should have a mechanism where it can be shipped. Otherwise, it will be a very big challenging thing. And if you have to become a computer science engineer or something like that, you need a computer. That's a basic requirement and internet connection. And this internet connection problem, I'm pretty sure that Facebook, Amazon, Google, everyone is working on it, and they will have a solution. Like it will be like air after maybe we talk about 2030. Internet will be available just like the way we get air. Now it's already happening in the metro cities, and it will happen. And the cost of technology will keep on reducing, and it will be affordable for the the what do you call the below poverty line people also. So that's how
Yes.
it will go actually. So and
Actually, I'm very happy that here in India, even the cost of internet is, I think, cheaper than when I used to use in the UAE, because there I used to pay 200 dirham per month, but here it's quite reasonable. I'm very happy that India is considered to be a country where more poor people dwells, but still here the internet connectivity and internet charges are lesser than the other countries.
And
And I think, yeah.
for example, Finland has created, they has made a law where they say that internet is a basic right. The way we say basic education is a basic right, or right to live is a basic thing. So like that, I'm pretty sure that sooner or later, Indian government will also come like that, and it will be now itself. It is actually it will become free because. Once you have free internet, the money that they can make out of you will be more than selling that internet to you. That's what people because see, if you're selling internet, you can get only 1,000 rupees, right? But if you give internet and if you make them purchase 10,000 rupees things, then you get more money, right? So that's the the fundamental economics that works out of that. So a lot of people feel that internet will be free now. Later on, when you're addicted, they will make it paid. No, it doesn't work like that. It works in a different way. The economics behind that.
Thank you very much. And this curriculum, what we were talking about, Cyber Square curriculum. So, who is the author? You are the brain behind this curriculum, or
We have a
in,
team actually. We have a team, research team, which is working on it, which includes even mainly we have doctors. I mean, because we need to understand the psychology of the students, and then we have people from the industry like where Apple, and then we are also working with IIT Mumbai on this education department. So we are like we work with academicians, and yeah, I mean, as you said, the I am the conceptualizer of it. I was the one who thought that this is how it should be rather than what I understood is computer science is taught currently the way they're teaching English or maths or science. That's why the students are not able to create things by their own. That's the same thing which happening in a BTech also. Like you take a BTech student, they don't know how to create a website after 4 years. Why? Because they have been learning computer science the way they learned maths and science and other things. See, you learn science, but you don't create something in science, right? That's not the case with computers. You can actually create your own things. So we have changed.
actually we don't focus on applications, we don't focus on implementation, we don't focus on real life connectivity, we don't focus on projects based learning. So that is the main reason behind this.
But you know what? If you're doing science, you need a lot of investment for that. But when you talk about computers, you don't need an investment extra. You just need a computer and your internet connection. That's it. So you talk about a science. For example, you're learning about spaceship. You cannot try spaceship because it needs a lot of investment, right? So that may be one reason why we limit ourselves to theory in science and other subjects. Or like you have planted something, you have to wait 5 years for that plant to actually grow up, right? But in computers it's not like that, but they followed the same 1,500 to 2,000 year old concepts to teach computer science also. That's how I think we lost the whole idea of how the computer science should be lost. So we are trying to get it back. And we have a vision to create 10 million code literates all over the world. And we are pretty sure that we should be able to achieve that, working with the schools and people.
Yeah, my best wishes are with you, and you have lots of passion and for your mission. That is the vibrant thing I have found in you. You are talking about that why children are not able to work on computers. I have seen the computer being taught as if like they are learning what is keyboard in the junior classes and what is this, what is that. All the questions starts with W and ends with W. So that there ends. The reason is that there is only one lab that accommodates 30 students maximum. And in this school, there are 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, even 6,000 students. How everybody is going to get the chance of doing that?
No, but that's what I mean. Now, if you go back, like for example, if you take the case of UA, every household has a computer or a laptop for sure.
Yeah.
Because the people who can bring their family here, they have that much income, minimum income. And again, it's about, if you don't buy dress for like 1 year, you can buy a laptop. But where the focus is, that's what I was talking about, the focus. See, for your marriage, you borrow money, you conduct it, all these things. But you buy a laptop for 20,000 or 25,000, it's set for your child, right? If they use in the right way, then he can do a lot of things. That's my point. So maybe for an admission you pay 20,000 rupees donation, but you won't invest in the right place. I mean, this is something which I've always noticed.
So now, Mr. Harris, everybody has to understand this need, because this is the need of the hour and there is no escape. Now, nobody can say that, oh, without computer or without teaching my child coding or AI, I can survive, or my child is going to survive. Yes, you can survive maybe, because you have already lived your life. 50% or 60% or 70%, but your child has to still to go a long way. Your child has to go a long way. We have to think about the child.
I just want to add one more thing. You think about somebody who is watching this particular video and he doesn't know English. Okay, so he will just feel that if I knew English, I would have been in a better position. In the same way, like everybody feels, if my English is not good, I will not be confident to speak up. The same way, if you don't know coding, you will be left out after 30 years.
Very true. But luckily, after 30 years, I am not going to be there. But the children who are going to be there, they have to learn coding.
Exactly, that's the point.
Yeah, they have to. That's why I say that all these high school stakeholders, the parents, they must try to understand the importance of this. So, Haris, thank you very much for sharing your passion and your vision and mission with us. And I wish you all the best for your future endeavors. And I request all the parents and the students and the school management to kindly look into your curriculum, that is Cyber Esquire, which has been prepared with lots of care and lots of keeping the psychology of the children in mind. And then lots of experts are involved in this. And I'm sure that this Cyber Esquire is going to do wonders. I request you if you can send me a few copies of your books, so that in my next show, I am going to have the book review as textbook. And then I can, my viewers can be benefited by the reviews very well. It was from the mouth of the designer or the conceptualizer, but now it's going to be from the mouth of a common person, that how it is. I'm sure that the book is going to be very, very beneficial for the students, and I wish you all the best. Thank you very much. So, my dear viewers, thank you very much for being with us. And inshallah, tomorrow again, we are going to have an author with us, and we are going to discuss a very interesting book. So please be with us tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Till then, take special care of yourself. Thank you and bye-bye.